Please. Thank you and welcome to this first meeting of 2022. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched onto silent to avoid any disruption to the meeting. If the fire alarm sounds, you will be directed where to go. Please follow the instructions given by officers. Please can I take this opportunity to remind members of the protocol to be followed in this meeting and the procedures in place in relation to speaking, which must be adhered to at all times. We will move into prayers, please. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Now move on to apologies. Caroline, could you confirm apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received on behalf of Councillors Beaumont, Birch, Boville, Boynton, D'Altry, Fox, Green, Healing, Healy, McMaster, Norman, Councillor V. Walker, Scow and Sargentson.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please?
Councillor Elvidge.
Councillor Elvidge, please.
A non-pecuniary interest in question number 8C, that I'm a governor at the school.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have must declare an interest in relation to the item number 11 and the first motion as an employee of the National Pig Association.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Abraham, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary interest in the accepted minutes 107 of 21. I'm a member of the Police and Crime Panel.
Thank you very much indeed. I can see no further hands.
Yeah, you've got Councillor Coultish,
Councillor
Harold,
Councillor Coultish, please.
and Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chairman. Pecuniary interest in item 11, motion B, in that I work for a taxi firm.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harold, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 11B, as in my family members work in the private hire industry.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes, please. I think this Councillor gets in as well.
Thank you. Similarly to Councillor Abraham, I'm also a member of the Police and Crime Panel.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Gatesell, did you have one? Yeah.
Yes, exactly the same membership of the Police and Crime Commissioners panel.
Thank you very much indeed. Anyone else, please? Thank you. I will move on. to item agenda number 2, the minutes. That the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of November and on the 10th of December 2021 be approved and signed as a current record.
Vote to second, Chair.
Thank you. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. And any abstentions, please? Thank you. That is carried. Agenda item number 3, petitions. There are no petitions. Number 4, questions for electors, by electors. There are no questions. Number 5, communications. There are no communications. So we move on to agenda item number 6, minutes of the Cabinet and committees. That the minutes of the meetings listed in item 6 on the council summons be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and adopted with the exception of minute 88/21 of the Cabinet held on the 23rd of November 2021 and minute 107/21 of the Cabinet meeting held on the 14th of December 2021.
Vote to second, Chair.
Thank you. All those in favour, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Any against?
Okay.
Thank you. Any abstentions, please? That is therefore carried. Moving on, the accepted minutes of the Cabinet, minute 88/21, Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring, 2021 to 2022. Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. May I move that the accepted minute be received? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holby. Thank you. Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to address the issues raised on adult social services, particularly the section near the bottom of page 14. For members who've not had a chance to view the Cabinet meeting, I would recommend that they look at the YouTube recording of it, because there's some quite interesting background to this report. The Interim Director of Social Services, Jill Vickers, made some very important contributions to that meeting. And I'll just quote a few of the things that she said that are on the YouTube recording. She said, "We are facing a perfect storm of workforce, domiciliary and residential care." And I repeat that, we are facing a perfect storm. Now, some of it is due to the national problems that are in social care. But she also made the point that here in the East Riding, we have specific problems. We have an ageing workforce. We also have a relatively poorly paid workforce that can't really, in terms of the jobs that are available, can't really compete with those in industry and retail. And she made the point that there are jobs that are paying about £1.50 to £4 an hour available to the staff, and that's driving part of the loss of staff from the industry. She also made the point that although being in social care is a vocation and a calling, however, being in those other jobs does offer much less pressure and much less hours, much more sociable, and that's part of the factor. She also mentioned, she also said, and I quote, "The issue of Brexit means that some people are leaving the care sector." And I'll just repeat that. The issue of Brexit means that some people are leaving the care sector. She also talked about the compulsory vaccinations are also causing some people to leave. Now, I don't know what the numbers are, but that's also a concern, that if people are dropping out because of compulsory vaccinations. And indeed, some people are going sick through COVID, and that's adding to the problems. There's also pressure on the hospitals to get people out, often who are perhaps sicker than they should be when they're being released, in order to free up the beds. And that's causing further problems. And she came up with the figure that the East Riding is 3,000 domiciliary hours short. That's 3,000 domiciliary hours short. Now, part of the response from the council has been to divert some of the social services workers from reviewing care packages, which is an important ongoing process, but from reviewing those care packages to actually dealing with those who need care. So in a sense, we are fighting the short term and sacrificing some of the longer term. In the residential care market, she made the point that there are aging owners who are looking to retire out, but it's difficult for people to buy in because often these businesses need a level of borrowing that cannot be sustained by the returns. And I don't know where they are, but 2 residential homes have just closed due to inadequate care. Now, there's always a bit of a churn, but in this instance, she made the point that this is simply because care homes don't have the staff to provide the level of care needed. Now, she did recommend bringing forward the national living wage from April to the 1st of December, and I'm assuming that's what's included in the recommendations, although it's not by all means clear, but I think resolved item C is, I assume, a move towards bringing in bringing forward the national living wage increase. But she also made the point that that in itself is not going to solve the problem. The situation is going to get worse and not better. And asked about the one-off grant of £140 per person, which the government has provided as part of their package of £979,000, she said that, I quote, "It's really not going to make a difference. It may stop some people leaving in the short term, but it won't solve the longer term problems." And she also said that we need to be paying drivers higher mileage. So, in the long term, Jill Vickers is saying what is on the table from the government is not enough. It may prevent some short-term issues, and we may be able to balance the books, as Julian Nielsen also said in the meeting, but there are some long-term structural problems facing care in the East Riding. And I end by saying that the government under Boris Johnson promised that they would have an oven-ready deal on social care. Now, we haven't seen that 2 years on. We and our residents have been let down by the lack of longer-term care packages, proposals being brought forward. And to finally end, the national insurance increase is disgraceful because it's unfair, and we know that that money is not going to go to social care. It will get swallowed up within the NHS crisis that we have. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I wasn't quite sure what tack Councillor Nolan would be taking by accepting that minute, but I'm pleased to see he's caught up with a debate that's been going on for probably about the last 6 months, both here at full council and in various other committees. I do totally agree with him that we are in a dire problem, and it is dire at the moment, and it is nationally, but we've been coping very well because we have been aware of this for some months now. And I think we're coping as well as any authority under current conditions. In anticipation that he might be sort of discussing the issue, I have asked for some of the work we're doing at the moment. So I'm not going to go through it this afternoon, but I'll happily circulate all members with a list of some of the initiatives that we're actually doing as a local authority. That's building on some national initiatives, a lot of work going on workforce recruitment and retention, which has actually been very successful to date. But of course, people take time to be trained, so we're looking at ways of speeding up that training. But of course, there are 2 or 3 months lags in terms of getting people trained up to do some of these caring jobs. But that work is progressing. But of course, that leaves you a short-term stopgap to have to be filled. So we have brought forward the living wage to, I forget what the date was, starting on the 1st of December or January. Anyway, that has been brought forward, so that is in place now. There are plenty of initiatives going on to look at that workforce. And of course, the important thing is all this is looking after our vulnerable, because they're the ones that must continue to receive the care. And I'm the last person to actually say it's good that you have to stop giving care to people, but we have to be very, very, very careful who we take care away from. There's an awful lot of work going on with families so they can come forward and help care for people, particularly those that are coming out of hospital. And I would agree, probably people are having to come out of hospital sooner than they should because of the pressures on the NHS. But all I can say is there is a lot going on. We are aware of it. The recruitment campaigns are actually going well at the moment, and we're trying to keep that balance of shortfall of care, say 3,000–4,000 hours a week, but it's not the same people every week, week in, week out. It's a transient population of people, so we're trying hard to get care to those people that need it. It is a national problem, it is being worked on, and I'll happily circulate some of the details of the initiatives that we're having. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I will now take the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is therefore carried. Now move on to accepted minute number 107/21, Council Tax Base 2022 to 23. Councillor Owen, please.
Contained therein be approved and adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Holtby.
Yeah, I beg to second.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Jump, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me all right? Yes?
Fine,
good.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Members, I would like to draw your attention to the wording of this minute. It's simply a recommendation to the Council. In this particular case, Cabinet has made a recommendation that is entirely opposed to the members' recommendation of the Overview and Management Scrutiny Committee on the 4th of November. Cabinet and scrutiny system was designed to deal with situations like this. Scrutiny takes the time to delve deeply into a topic and consider different perspectives and makes a recommendation to Cabinet, which they then usually follow and we accept at full council. Why did the Cabinet, on their meeting of the 14th of December, reject the Overview and Management's recommendation of the 4th of November? We don't know, because there was no debate. It was just nodded through. We would be fools to follow such a perverse recommendation without doing extensive research to explain the Cabinet's actions to our residents. The Overview and Management recommendation was based on a comprehensive report compiled by our own officers and was agreed unanimously by elected members. The report proved that our council tax discount scheme for special constables was not having the desired impact on the recruitment of specials. It proved that this discount did not increase interest and did not favourably influence recruitment. In fact, to the contrary, it has caused some confusion, and those are the words in the report from the police. Whilst the amount of 60k spent on this scheme may seem small change to some people, 60k would be welcomed by many of our departments. Highways, for example, repairing potholes, social services, supporting domiciliary care. And bearing in mind, having recently received 2 extremely woeful Ofsted inspections, this small windfall would not come amiss in that direction either. If the Cabinet had additional information, then this was not debated at their meeting on the 14th of December. In fact, there was no debate whatsoever. If there was additional information, then the item should have been referred back to Overview and Management Scrutiny for their deliberations. Furthermore, and rather worrying, this Cabinet decision, if approved, is open-ended, so we can carry on providing this discount indefinitely. It is irresponsible to make an open-ended financial decision when the supposed benefactors state there is no benefit. Just because 2 other neighbouring authorities continue to support this scheme, it doesn't mean we cannot make our own decisions. We're not joined at the hip, well, not yet anyway. We're guardians of the public purse, and as such we should be managing our council's finances for the benefit of our residents and not cozying up to neighbouring councils. By all means, let us explore non-financial incentives that will impact favourably on recruitment for the voluntary emergency sector, and that is what the Overview and Scrutiny Management agreed at their November meeting. I urge councillors to reject the undemocratic Cabinet Minute and instead support this amendment, the accepted Cabinet Minute 107/21. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor A. Walker, please.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't quote the whole minute, but here is a condensed version. OMC decided that the 12-month experiment should be ended. Cabinet, however, agreed that it should be continued. For me, the value is not the issue. It is this dangerous overturning of a clear decision of the most senior committee at the hands of the Cabinet, without debate or any referral. This is not a misunderstanding. It negates a clear and democratic decision, and that's no way that this council should do business. This amendment, however, is concise and puts the matter right. So I urge all members most strongly to support this amendment as a matter of principle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to second.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Matheson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We're actually in quite an interesting position here. At least our officers will be when they try and go and take away the instructions from this council meeting, because it may have escaped most people's notice, but actually at item 6, minutes of the Cabinet and committees, we have already voted that the minutes of the meetings listed at item 6 be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and adopted. That includes, on page 55 of your council papers, the recommendation from Overview Management that this scheme be terminated. It then has the contradictory, or at least it would be contradictory if we'd also, under that same heading, just rubber stamped the recommendation from Cabinet, which is exactly the opposite. So I'm rather grateful to Councillor Jump for accepting this minute so that we can not have a contradiction and we can vote simply in one direction, and that is to end this scheme, which was an experiment and has been found not required anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gatehill, please. Oh, I do apologise. Is it Councillor Rudd? Yep, Councillor.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got to look at the history of this particular scheme. I seem to recall that many years ago, or some years ago certainly, this scheme was in and accepted. Then it was withdrawn, and now it's suggested it returns. Now, the police, the special constables, as we know, just work on expenses. A lot of them enter the police force as special constables because they want to be full-time constables, and good luck to them if they make the grade. But while they are special constables, as we all know, they have to undergo the same threats that a fully trained officer does. And this is why, one of the reasons why they've been made an exception. Now, I don't think, as Councillor Jump says, you know, we're cozying up to the other authorities. Of course we're not. We're just, by bringing this scheme back or maintaining it, all we're doing is we're working in partnership with other authorities. And I think it's about time, in many cases, we started to do that more often in other directions as well. After all, you know, we are part of the Yorkshire and Humber area, whether we like it or not, some of us. So I don't see any problem in this scheme, and for £60,000, it's a drop in the ocean, basically. I think when we in fact look at the decision of overview and management, in my reading of it all, just because the overview and management suggests something, don't mean to say this council's got to adopt it. And if the Cabinet want to take a different view, it's all about pecking order and how much power you've got, let's be honest. So it doesn't mean to say that we have to necessarily take notice of the Overview and Management Committee. I think this is a wrong decision if we were to support this proposal. And as people talk about extending it to other organisations or voluntary sectors and so on, where do you stop? That's the point. Where do you stop? It's very difficult. If you give it to one and make them a special case like the special constables, there are big arguments for that. I understand as well it's being looked at anyway this year, and there may well be amendments or different funding or whatever from other bodies. Who knows? Or there may be a change of view by other authorities in the Humberside policing area. But I definitely think we should keep it as it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak, but Councillor Rudd has moved me to comment on it. When this scheme was first being mooted, I and others felt that why just pick out special constables? What about emergency workers? And we have the Humber lifeboats in our area in Hessel, and I can't see why on earth they are not included in it. And at the time I argued that we should extend it to that and to other lifeboat crews as an example. It does seem to me to be wrong to single out special constables and to ignore emergency workers. As I understand it, the scheme isn't particularly working in terms of the special constables being exempted. It doesn't seem to be affecting the recruitment. It may be nice to have, but it's not actually doing what was intended. However, when I step back on it, I have to agree with Councillor John that this does feel like a slap in the face for overview and management scrutiny. They've made a recommendation on what is a relatively minor expenditure item, and they've just been completely ignored by the Cabinet. And I think that seems to me to be poor judgment by the Cabinet, and I think they ought to have listened much more clearly to overview and management. So our group will be supporting the amendment as on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jefferson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had no intention of speaking. Already two of my group had made the point, and I thought it was a very serious point. I rise because I do not agree with Councillor Rudd. I believe to stand there today and say, where does it stop? We started it. We were the ones who said, when we were asked about it, if we would go forward and perhaps give this benefit. We could stop it because the PCC have said very clearly it's not of no use to them, and they don't even like the red tape. Now, that was said at the Cabinet meeting by our own finance officer. The Cabinet doesn't like me. The Cabinet did not debate it. They had the papers in front of them, but quite clearly they were perfectly happy to go along with what was in their papers. That's their prerogative. I have no problem with the Cabinet. But what I'm saying today is, we've now got a background that's telling us John Everson, the PCC, that's what he's paid for, said he doesn't want it. We would look ridiculous to our residents to try and push something, as Councillor Rudd said, is so small amount of money anyway, when we need every penny for our carers and for our education. And please today, go along with this amendment. I think it's the first time I've stood up and said that at any council meeting, but I think it's a really important one, and I promise you there's been a lot of work and a lot of people have been spoken to and listened to, and we should be listening to the PCC. Let's not make ourselves look silly. Thank you very much. We have got an ambulance service, we have got a fire authority. They're all blue lighters. We're not offering them, nor should we. But please today, go for the amendment. I will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meredith, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I can actually appreciate and indeed understand the points of view of both Councillors Jump and Walker who have brought this amendment before us today. And had the papers in front of us suggested that we should continue indefinitely, I would be supporting the amendment, I have to admit. But they don't. It says here that it should be continued in the interim and until alternative incentives have been explored. Now, as Councillor Nolan's highlighted, I hope these incentives can be more inclusive. But I can't support an amendment that removes without replacement at this time, so I will be supporting the as originally printed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, do you wish to speak now?
Yes, I will, thank you, Chair.
I was just about to give Councillor Jump the opportunity to reply before you close the debate.
In that case, Councillor Jump can reply and I will then close the debate. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Jump, would you like to reply? No, well, Councillor Owen will be closing the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Rudd, I can only presume you haven't read the overview and scrutiny report that we received from officers, and I think you'll find, excuse me, that most of your questions are answered, so I suggest you do that. We considered the reported overview and scrutiny very thoroughly, and it wasn't a decision that we made off our own bat. It was based on very detailed information that the officers had taken a considerable time to gather. Right, to sum up, I fear that this cabinet decision in some residents' eyes may smack of pre-election shenanigans. Hopefully this isn't true, but we can't control how people think or their perceptions. Having previously approved the recommendation on the 4th of November, but now see it overturned by Cabinet, it will be interesting to see how the Conservative members on overview and management vote. Some may abstain. Some may take an unexpected comfort break, and others may actually have the backbone to vote as they did on the 4th of November, because we have, excuse me, have had no additional information supplied to us as members that contradicts any of the information that we received in that officer's report. So I await with interest. In the meantime, I would be grateful if Caroline Lacey would check that there is no conflict between the various recommendations we've had on this, because it would appear that there might be a conflict and the officers might quite not know what exactly direction they're going in. Thank you. I wish to have a recorded vote, by the way. Thank you.
Do you have a number of support? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. That we will record the vote. Councillor Owen, to close the debate, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I find this quite an interesting debate, actually, because I always thought a bit of challenge between members was healthy at times, where you tend to disagree. But I can also remind, just in terms of process, that we do have a call-in process with scrutiny if they are unhappy with decisions made or recommendations from Cabinet. You know, there is a call-in process which could be used, and I wasn't aware of any huge interest raised at the time when Cabinet took the decision. However, the background to it is, and I appreciate actually, all the comments that have been made and the things put forward. What we wanted to be clear was, rather than being the only authority in the Humberside policing area to withdraw this offer, it would be useful to get more information ourselves on whether the other three authorities thought the same. Then we could all make a joint decision. We wanted a further discussion actually with the Police and Crime Commissioner, because the information that fed through from the reports I'd read and seen was that it wasn't being promoted to try and encourage special constables to come forward. So we wanted some more clarification, and we felt it would be useful just to continue for a short while, not open-ended, to get some of that clarification. Now, I will not be supporting the amendment, but what I can commit to as leader is that I will make sure that we have further discussions with the other three authorities. We have discussions with the Police and Crime Commissioner, and I can do those off the record. That doesn't have to be informal meetings, to ensure whether they really do think it's of value. And I suggest also that we ask the Police and Crime panel to discuss the issue when they next meet as an issue to move forward. Now, I can make that commitment as leader that I'd like to follow up on those things, but I don't feel we need to agree with the amendment. I would like to let the original minutes stand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I will therefore now take the vote on the amendment first. All those in favour, please?
Sorry, Councillor Wilkinson, it's a recorded vote.
Oh, beg your pardon. A recorded vote.
Okay, members, we'll be doing it in the order of seating, and I'm going to start with Councillor Wilkinson.
Against.
Councillor Whittle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham. Councillor Dewhurst.
Against.
Councillor Smith. Against. Councillor Aitken.
Against.
Councillor Tucker.
Against.
Councillor Everson.
Against.
Councillor Holtby.
Against.
Councillor Owen.
Against.
Councillor Nolan. Councillor Davison. Councillor Jefferson. Councillor A. Walker. Councillor Matheson.
For.
Councillor Jump.
For.
Councillor Sutton.
For.
Councillor Padden.
For.
Councillor Elvidge.
Against.
Councillor Medini.
Against.
Councillor Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Harold.
Against.
Councillor Lee.
Against.
Sorry, I can't see behind you, sir.
Rogers.
Sorry.
Councillor Rogers.
Councillor Rogers, sorry, I can see you there.
Against.
I've lost my place now, just a minute.
Councillor Dennis.
Councillor Dennis, thank you.
Against.
Councillor Stathers.
Against.
Councillor Temple.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Kay West.
Against.
Councillor Horton.
Against.
Councillor Hanley.
Against.
Councillor Gateshill.
Against.
Councillor Greenwood.
Against.
Thank you. I can't see that at all. Councillor Steele.
Against.
Councillor Hammond.
Against.
Councillor Coultish.
Abstain.
Councillor Weeks.
Abstain.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Heslop Mullins.
For.
Councillor Barbara Jeffries.
For.
Councillor D. Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Gill.
For.
Councillor Nickerson.
Against. Against.
Councillor Copsey.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Sykes.
Against.
Councillor Holmes.
Against.
Councillor Meredith.
Against.
Councillor P. West.
Against.
Councillor Rudd.
Against.
Councillor Burton.
Against.
Councillor Chadwick.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor L. Bayram.
Against.
Councillor C. Bayram.
Against.
Councillor Winter.
Against.
Thank you.
The vote is 14 for, 38 against, and 1 abstention. So that is lost. What was that? I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
Oh, sorry. It's hard to hear. Okay, so that was 14 for, 37 against, and 2 abstentions. So the amendment's lost.
So the amendment is therefore lost. We will now take the vote on the original motion. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Any against?
Okay.
Thank you. Any abstentions, please? Thank you. That is therefore carried. We'll now move on to item agenda number 7, the Leaders' Update. Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And may I start by wishing all members, officers, partner agencies, and above all our residents, best wishes for the year ahead. That aside, I'm more than aware of the fact that many residents will still be facing difficult times as we continue to battle with the pandemic, and our thoughts must be with those who have suffered loss or are caring for loved ones battling the disease. Our thoughts are also with those awaiting treatment in our hospitals, as waiting times increase for what a few years ago would have been routine operations carried out in a few weeks. For me, though, a particular thanks must go to the many who have been working constantly for months through the pandemic, over Christmas and New Year, and continue to do so. Those in the NHS, in education, social care, ambulance services, police and fire service, whom we all recognise, but also those, many in local government, supplying the services to the public we come to expect. Our bins are still being emptied, our streets are being cleaned, our leisure centres have reopened, and our customer service centres are supplying services to the public. I'm also acutely aware of those in the voluntary sector who have risen to the challenge and continue to provide essential support in our communities. From established organisations looking after the elderly, through mental health support services, but above all, the local groups and small teams of volunteers who offer their services often without recognition. Our thanks go to them all. We will soon be setting our council budget in what must be the most unpredictable times in my 20 years plus as a councillor, and we will need to focus on what are the priorities coming out of the pandemic. The world will never be the same again, but we have proven that we can now adapt faster, more effectively to respond than ever before. Our joint working with partner agencies has never been better, as we have shared the problems in a sense of collaborative working, and we will need to build on that ethos and lessons learned from the past couple of years. We will be facing many issues and pressures on children's and adult services, through to rebuilding our income through our leisure centres and other attractions. At the same time, our population is growing and ageing. We need to provide housing and access to services. We need to utilise technology to the full as people work from home and can be based anywhere across the country. As councillors, we will be agreeing over the next very few weeks our budget for the next year and beyond. We have had a reasonable settlement from government, but much of this is one-off funding and short-term stopgap measures and front-loading of support. And we know at local government level that the pressures on our care services are nowhere near fully met by recent government announcements on the use of national insurance levies, etc., which, although welcome, must be translated into longer-term sustainable funding models. We still await the Levelling Up white paper to see what the latest direction on devolution is, with hints that the new Secretary of State may be reviewing the use of business rate income as a source of local government funding, all of which impinges on the fantastic progress being made locally on enterprise zones, free ports, etc. But all this is for our budget debates over the next few weeks, and I will look forward to bringing things together when the budget proposals are put forward. And can I also thank the teams behind the scenes who've been working hard to pull together the financial plans in conjunction with directors, cabinet portfolio holders, etc., despite late information from government. We cannot lose sight, however, on the situation with COVID. It is a horrendously difficult position for any government to balance the pressures of business, health, and public expectation, where whatever decisions are made, lives will be lost, businesses fail, and members of the public will react to their individual situations. At a local level, I can only praise the direction, advice, and leadership shown by our own professionals in public health and other services involved in terms of the advice given, but above all, the fantastic efforts working with schools, businesses, and the NHS to promote safe procedures, monitor outbreaks, and contain them, but to have communicated the message to such an extent that our vaccination rates are one of the best in the country. Our thanks must go to them. We are not out of the woods yet, and must continue to follow the common sense advice as we hope we get through the winter safely and keep our hospitals in a manageable state. We will also need to keep fully involved in the introduction of the new integrated care systems as we ensure a place at the table so local government has its full say in the use of resources between the NHS and ourselves. Again highlighted as pressures on our NHS as they are intrinsically linked with our care provision. We will need to ensure the NHS moving forward has as much emphasis on prevention as on cure. I don't intend saying any more today, as I know our important debates are to come at imminent meetings, especially the budget meeting in February. As we move through the debates on priorities and expenditure between our political groups, may I hope that this year in particular we put, as we must, the needs of our residents first and join together politically as best we can to share a common goal for them all. Times will never be the same again. There will be no new normal as we learn to continually adapt to challenges, but we are well placed to be able to do that. I was going to end at that point, but I'd like to just put in a little plug for Sarah Baxter and Democratic Services. I received an email early this morning as we in the spa again today with our meetings, which many members may have read already, but will be getting, if they haven't opened the email already, which says, the Association of Democratic Services Officers and Lawyers in Local Government have launched a petition calling on government to create parliamentary time to allow time to agree a change in the law to allow councils to meet remotely if they wish. And I stress I would like as many members as possible to sign up to that petition, because I think it's long overdue, and I just wanted to put that plug in before I finished that point. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move on to questions under Procedure Rule 7.8. Councillor Nickerson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Given the recent fantastic achievements of Track Fitness and Boxing Club in Beverly and some of its individual members over the past year, in particular Rocco Pulling, age 14, who became the British Schoolboys Boxing Champion 2021 for the whole of the UK, young Max Sabian, also age 14, who has been selected to join the Yorkshire training squad that represents Yorkshire in national boxing competitions, and also Tallulah Pulling, who has become the British Female Juniors Boxing Champion and also represented Yorkshire recently, coming first place for our county in the MTK Boxing Cup. Would the Council commit to continue supporting the club, its trustees and members as it develops further? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, please.
Questions to the leader, which lets Councillor Owen off the hook, but perhaps isn't the right way around.
Thank you. I didn't see any hands up.
Oh, well, I'll put mine up.
I didn't see any hands up. I'm sorry, Councillor Nolan. I saw no hands up and I was looking very carefully.
I'm happy to discuss anything later, David, if you'd like to ask me. No, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nickerson, actually, and I'm sure it's heartening to read of successes of any youngsters as listed in your question to me. But in general terms, all I can say is that the Council's health and wellbeing team from Culture and Customer Services are keen to continue to support the club, as we do all sporting clubs, with advice, support, guidance, signposting to funding, and others that can help develop their club, with volunteers, etc. Any property-related matters will, of course, be dealt with on a proper commercial basis, and I look forward to discussions between the local authority and the club moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And we'll move on to Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you. Thank you. While the increases in fuel charges and many of the smaller energy suppliers closing down, my question is, due to the increasing in fuel charges, is there any likely to be any impact on the East Riding's fuel buying scheme?
Thank you. Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Smith. And the Council does recognise the extreme pressures our residents are facing due to the imminent price increases in the energy sector. In terms of the East Riding fuel buying scheme, Your Switch, the scheme is part of the big community switch operated by iChooser, which enables residents to join together and use their bargaining power to get a competitive fixed price offer for their energy supplies. Since 2013, Your Switch has helped over 36,000 East Riding residents switch energy supplier and save them over £7.6 million in the process. After running the last collective energy switching auction in October 2021, it became clear that none of the fixed price tariffs secured were a better option than simply staying on suppliers' standard variable tariffs, and residents were advised that there was no benefit in switching at this time. Over the winter season, though, energy prices have hit record highs and remain extremely volatile. The outcome of the next energy price cap review is due to be announced on the 7th of February, and it is expected that energy bills will rise by around 50% from the 1st of April, pushing a typical household bill to over £1,900 per year. The next collective energy switching auction with Your Switch is planned to take place on the 15th of February, and residents will receive their personal offer from the 28th of February 2022. In the offer, they will be able to see the details of the winning tariff, such as the standing charge and unit rate, as well as an estimated cost for the next 12 months. Residents will then have until the 29th of March this year to make a decision to either accept and switch or decline and remain with their current supplier. At this stage, we are unclear as to whether there will be a viable winning tariff. We are acutely aware of the impacts this is having on our residents and understand the difficult situations they may find themselves in. And the Council will continue to provide support and advice to residents to ensure they can access emergency financial support where available. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Eldridge, please.
Would the leader join me in congratulating the Year 5 and 6 football team from St Nicholas Primary School in Beverly, who recently won the Humberside Cup, and further join me in wishing them every success when they represent the region in the Midland Cup later this year?
Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Eldridge, and I do send my congratulations to the school team and wish them every success for their future matches representing the region. During this time when school staff are responding to the many challenges presented by the COVID pandemic, it's really good to see schools are not only continuing to provide academic, but also extracurricular activities for children and young people to participate in, as we know that this helps to develop personal development and skills beyond the classroom. So yes, happy to congratulate the school on its success. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Harold, please.
Thank you, Chair. Would the leader join me in congratulating everyone who came together to make the Festival of Christmas on Sunday the 12th of December 2021 such a wonderful and successful day, not just for Beverly, but the entire region, and especially as the event celebrates its 25th year and continues to attract visitors from across Yorkshire and showcases so many local products. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Everson to reply, please.
Please excuse my back, everybody. I'm more than happy to join with Councillor Harold in a message of congratulations. The successful delivery of Beverly Festival of Christmas is something to be extremely proud of. Events on this scale require a huge amount of planning, preparation, and even more so now during the challenges of a pandemic. To deliver an event on this scale successfully and safely is a huge credit to all those involved in the event. We estimate that Festival of Christmas drew in around 50,000 visitors, generating around £1 million to the local economy, whilst helping raise the profile of Beverly and East Yorkshire as a destination to visitors. The festival supports many local East Riding businesses at a vital time of the year for them and provides a much-needed boost to our high streets. Events including the Beverly Festival of Christmas and many other festive events that took place across the East Riding in our towns and villages provide not just economic benefits, but generate experiences in our communities. These help make the East Riding a great place to visit, work and live. Events are a huge part of the economic development of the East Riding, and like the Beverly Festival of Christmas, we look forward to many more events returning and taking place next year, or this year now.
Thank you very much, and if I might break protocol and just add my personal congratulations as I opened the event, and although I was upstaged by reindeer, some extremely large mountain dogs and some dancing elves. Councillor Weeks, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Will the leader join me in congratulating the 25 young people who are standing for election as East Riding's representatives on the UK Youth Parliament? And does he agree with me that encouraging young people to engage in politics and the democratic process will have wide-reaching benefits for the future of the East Riding?
Thank you. Councillor Aitken, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Weeks. Yes, I'd be more than happy to join you in congratulating these young people who've put themselves forward for election, and I've seen a number of the manifesto videos which have been used to launch their campaigns, and they are really great and quite inspiring. Elections for the UK Youth Parliament will take place next month, and the Council has been working alongside East Riding Voluntary Action Services, ERVAS to you and I, to work with schools and engage all young people aged between 11 and 18 across the East Riding to take part either by putting themselves forward as candidates or getting involved in the election process. We actually have 25 candidates standing for election, with the youngest candidate, yeah, you'll not believe this, but just 11 years old. And they're all currently on the campaign trail in a bid to win votes when the elections take place in February. Now, as well as the candidates' direct involvement, many other youngsters will be experiencing how the democratic process works by being involved behind the scenes, on the day and at the count, all under the very experienced and watchful eye of our own Democratic Services team. Our school leaders have also been up for the challenge and enabling this very positive event to go forward. So I'd like to thank them all for their enthusiasm and for their guidance. Candidates are asking their peers to elect 2 representatives to sit on the UK Youth Parliament, as well as 2 deputies. And I'd like to wish them all the best on their election day. These young people are our future, so it's really pleasing to see them engaging and learning about the democratic process. And for those who are elected, it could well be the first step on the road to a career in politics. And you never know, we may well have a future Prime Minister in our midst. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gateshill, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is this: what can East Riding of Yorkshire Council do to ensure the provision of central government funding for the much-needed rail infrastructure improvements to the Hull to Selby and Gould to Leeds routes? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tucker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Gateshill, for your question. More importantly, thank you to Councillor Harold for your glasses. Thank you. Councillor Gateshill, the East Riding of Yorkshire Council will continue to work with our key partners, including the Hull City Council, the Transport for the North Board, and to lobby central government in a long overdue improvements on the route from Hull to Leeds. The government finally published its integrated rail plan, the RIP, for the north of the Midlands in November this year. Whilst it did not commit to delivering the Northern Powerhouse Rail routes to Hull, it did at least recognise that some of the misgivings and some of the weaknesses on our line, particularly the electrification and line improvements, to be considered subject to a business case work. Via the current Trans-Pennine route, the TRU project, the government will be committed to deliver electrification from just Leeds and the NPR, and then would have extended it all the way to Hull. In addition, the NPR feasibility work and the route conditions along the whole route has been demonstrated to lower cost than originally forecast, extending that route. Therefore, officers will continue to liaise with central government and promote the importance of these improvements. East Riding Council will continue to work to ensure that train services to Gould to Leeds and the line will be enhanced in partnership with the Gould Town Board, and the Council has commissioned a business case to work with these costs, providing an hourly service into this route. The work involves stakeholders, including local MPs, neighbouring authorities, and will seek to demonstrate the wider economic benefits, including the additional train services. Once completed, the expectation is that the business case will then be submitted to both government and the Transport for the North Board. The council, alongside its partners, will push hard to pursue positive consideration and introduction of the additional services. So that's my narrative, Councillor Gatesell. What I'd like to now is return the glasses and say thank you, is let you know what I'm doing as a portfolio holder, because I think there's a lot of work going on in the background, and I think it'd be useful for councillors to realize what's going on. I've met recently with the MP, Andrew Stevenson, who's the Minister for Transport. I pushed this on this one basis and said how disadvantaged we feel, particularly that I think basically anything east of Leeds seems to be forgotten about. I also sit on the Transport for the North Board. I met only last week with, hopefully, who's going to be the new Chief Executive, which is Lord Patrick McLaughlin. I will be meeting him in Manchester, not next week, the week after, where I'll be pressing him for our consent in our area. I will also be inviting Lord McLaughlin to this authority, and I'm hoping that members, irrespective of party, will come along and let your voice be heard, because I think that's really important. It shouldn't just be a Conservative thing. I'd welcome other parties to come and meet Lord McLaughlin when he comes. Also, as a part of the board meeting that I'm attending week after next in Manchester, we are putting a plan together where we will be going to the Transport Select Committee at Westminster, and be pushing our case there to say what we think should be happening. On top of that, I'm pressing hard to improve the rail services. I'm sure Councillor Handley will be smiling without that mask, because at the moment we only have one transport direct link from Gould to Leeds, which is totally unacceptable. So to answer your question, Councillor Gatesell, there's an awful lot of work going on. And I hope when the Lord McLaughlin does come across, you will take the opportunity to come and meet him and let your voice be heard too. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nolan, please.
A supplementary as well, Chair, just to give notice. In the light of the Council's failure to keep its housing land supply figures up to date and enable sufficient affordable housing, thereby leaving the back door open to Gladman's successful appeals to drop 380 houses in Pocklington and a further 150 houses in Swanland, despite both already being over capacity, will the leader, on behalf of the Conservative-run council, apologise for those failures, plus the cost of taxpayers' money, £33,000 in direct legal costs, plus the officer time spent on the appeals, for which we have no record, wasted in the failed challenge of the decision at the High Court?
Councillor Owen, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I won't at the outset be offering any apologies for the strong action the Council took over the last few months on this, but a little bit of background. The East Riding local plan actually allocates over 170 sites for future housing development. And the Council has approved a substantial and sufficient number of planning applications to maintain the necessary 5-year housing supply. However, since the base date of the local plan, which is 2012, these sites have not been built at the speed and extent required, and as such, the housing supply has reduced over time. Last year, the supply fell to 4.96 years for a period of 3 months, from January to April, which covered the period of the public inquiries in relation to the appeals at Pocklington and Swanland, and the subsequent decision by the planning inspector. Members will be aware that from the 6th of April 2021, the Council can now demonstrate a 10-year supply of housing. I was incredibly disappointed in the outcome of the planning appeals and subsequent High Court challenge. Bearing in mind that these processes and procedures allow that arguable grounds have to be there to proceed, which we were told there were. But it remains the case the Council presented a strong case in the High Court and had the Council been successful in quashing the decisions, any subsequent reconsideration of the appeals may have resulted in a different outcome, as we can now demonstrate that 10-year supply. With that in mind, though, I remain of the view that it was absolutely the right decision to challenge the inspector's decisions, and one that was made in the very best interests of supporting residents and communities of Pocklington and Swanland, as I know the local ward members have done throughout that process. I will not be apologising. I think it was the right course of action, and I would certainly do it again, because if we didn't, we'd have been failing our residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, you have a supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. Is the Leader of the Council aware that the minutes of the Scrutiny Committee repeatedly over several years warned the Cabinet that it was missing its housing land supply and also affordable housing figures, leading to an increase in the housing waiting list? And this failure is a gross error by the Conservative-run Council.
Councillor Owen.
There have been various debates over the years about affordable housing supply and the amount of development going on, which we're fully aware have always been tackled at the time. And all I say is I like foresight rather than hindsight, Councillor Nolan, and moving forwards, we will be looking at our affordable housing supply and all those issues. So yes, I mean, what is gone has gone. I'm looking to the future, not the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Given the concerns raised recently by planning members about safety and security at the Melton Underpass, which forms part of the safe route to school for some South Hunsley School students, are there any proposals by this Council to bring forward improvement schemes?
Thank you. Councillor Owen, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Abraham. And I fully appreciate the walking route for students accessing South Hunsley School from North Ferriby has been a very long-standing local concern. However, I'm also assured by the Council's road safety team that both the footbridge, overpass and underpass across the A63 have been assessed by officers in accordance with the national guidelines and are deemed safe to use. However, our officers will also continue to work with the police where there is cause for concern over those reports of antisocial behaviour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham, you have a supplementary.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can you tell me, given that the Melton Business Park is enterprise zone, should some of the enterprise zone retained business rates be used for a project to improve the security and safety of the underpass to better protect both our young people and employees walking and cycling to and from the business park? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Abraham. I mean, the immediate issue is, of course, using rates from the enterprise zone of the business park for something that's deemed already safe is a bit difficult. But I would hope that when the sort of park is fully built up and fully occupied, that then perhaps we can look at the whole area in terms of its street scene facilities to look at improving or upgrading where necessary. I can't promise that, but I hope that will be what happens in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Barham, I notice you've got your hand up, but you can't ask any questions under this area. Councillor Barham, you cannot ask any questions under this section. Councillor Barham, please, you cannot ask any questions.
Councillor Barham, that's not correct. No, that it doesn't open it up. Under the Constitution as it currently stands, the member asking the question can ask a supplementary, but it does not open it up to other members. That change was made in the Constitution some time ago. It was a change about 2 years ago, maybe.
Thank you, Councillor Barham. We'll go on to agenda item number 9, outside body questions. None have been received. So we'll move on to agenda item 10, portfolio holder reports. And start with Councillor Everson, the portfolio holder for economic growth and tourism, will make an oral report. Councillor Everson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, the start of a new year seems a very good time to look forward and update on economic activity in the area. The good news is the level of business activity in our area is really encouraging, with inquiries coming from international investors through the DIT and direct through agents and developers. Some examples. Pensana at Salt End, with a £100 million investment creating 105 jobs. Mercedes Garage at Melton, £10 million investment creating 97 jobs. And then recently completed investments include Tricoya at Salt End with 30 jobs, Amazon Plot D, 400 jobs, Brown's Books Melton with 80 relocated jobs, and Humberside Police with 500 jobs. The PX Group, who own and operate the Salt End Chemicals Park, state that there is to be a substantial investment going into the site over the next couple of years, and this will create development space along with development projects from existing operators and new investors. In addition is the job creation on the Yorkshire Energy Park and Step Fusion Energy Project, with submission from Gould's site shortlisted to the final 5. Despite the challenges COVID has produced, the Council's local growth team have worked to help many high street businesses reposition to meet the changing needs of the shoppers on our high streets. Our enterprise zone status has played a really important role in attracting business into the area. And of course, to the Council, there is the added benefit of the business rates from all new developments being retained up to 2040 to spend on economic development priorities. And I'll mention later how this is being achieved. The welcome news for Freeport status for the Humber area was announced at last year's autumn statement, and work to make those sites live is ongoing. Sites included in the submission are the Yorkshire Energy Park, an element of Salt End Chemicals Park, ABP's land to the west of the Salt End site, and land to the west of Gould Junction 36 site, with deadline for the full business case submission at the end of this month. All the sites within the East Riding Freeport are tax sites, which means investors will benefit from enhanced capital allowances, business rates relief, national insurance relief for a period of 5 years. And the longer-term benefit is that the 4 local authorities will pool the business rates, which will be used for economic development projects across the Humber region. Whilst we welcome the news about businesses moving into our area, it also presents great opportunities for the supply chain. The Council's business support team work with many local businesses, providing one-to-one advice sessions, ensuring they are well informed and prepared to take advantage of opportunities. Networking events and regular updates are available to keep businesses informed. And then there are the people who are thinking about starting up a business. Last year, the Council's Library Service set up New Business and Intellectual Property Scheme, BIPC, with centres in Beverly, Bridlington and Gould Libraries. These new centres are providing business information and support for people who are considering starting businesses and or have existing small businesses. And statistics tell us that after 3 years, where only 6 in every 10 new businesses are still ongoing, this compared to an average of 9 in 10 for BIPC businesses. Now, on the screen in front of you there, you will see 2 impressive new business centres are on track to open this year. The top one at Beverly and then below it at Gould. Both have investment from the Council and, as I mentioned earlier, through the Enterprise Zone's monies. Beverly New Enterprise Centre has 30 units and will replace the existing centre at Grove Hill. And 19 existing tenants have already said that they're interested in moving over and taking up occupancy. Gould Race Centre at the bottom, a new centre for small and medium-sized business, and part of a plan to work with Siemens and Birmingham University to create a rail village at Junction 36. Siemens will be occupying one of the levels of this new building. So two very impressive new business centres for us in this area. So that's just a brief overview that 5 minutes will allow, which I hope will give you a flavour of what activity economically is going on in the area.
Almost perfect timing, Councillor Everson. I can't see any questions.
I've got Councillor Steele.
Councillor Steele, please.
Councillor Abram.
Thank you, Councillor Everson, and for mentioning the developments that are going to be happening in my ward of South West Holderness. These developments on the Salt End site, of course, will be welcome. They will bring jobs to the area, hopefully. But equally, they are going to bring additional traffic, which I'm sure everyone here knows and is aware of. We do have a problem already. And I would hope that on the back of these large developments, which will bring the largest development, industrial setup in the whole of the East Riding, will actually be in South West Holderness. And I would hope that on the back of these developments, we could get some improvement to our road situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham, please.
Sorry, Councillor Everson needs to reply first.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Everson, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Steele. Yes, I am very aware of all the issues that you do have there, and I think that must be very much part of the discussions we have. I think that, if you like, that's the beauty of listening to other councillors and the then information I can take forward and make sure is actually acknowledged. So I am aware of it.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Everson, for the update. 400 jobs at Melton Plot D, which is the now operational Amazon Flex facility, is a surprise to me, as the Hull Daily Mail announced just 70 on-site jobs. But can the portfolio holder tell me how recruitment is going at this facility, please?
Councillor Everson.
Councillor Abram. No, I don't have just with me now information about what the employment situation is there. I'm more than happy to make inquiries and get that information for you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you, Councillor Everson. That was most insightful and great to see all the investment coming to the area. Now, in light of all these business inquiries and the opportunities that you've had to go and see business in the area and make representation, what do you feel is the view of business around the future of devolution deals and such like?
Councillor Everson.
Do you know, I have to say, Councillor Burton, in all honesty, when I've visited businesses and spoken to anybody, it's not something that's ever been raised with me at all. Business tends to be interested in business, in what we have to offer as an authority, how easy we make it for them, what the process is like, and that's what encourages them, as well as I've already said with our enterprise zones and the free port, which is the first consideration as far as business is concerned. That, as I say, is paramount importance when businesses speak to me. And as long as we're making it attractive for business to come here, which I know we do as an authority, and the teams I've already mentioned that are working in economic development make that passage as easy and they are as helpful as they possibly can be. And we also work very hard to make sure that the businesses already existing in the East Riding through the supply chain can take advantage of new business coming in. But devolution is not something that's ever been raised with me.
Is that Councillor Stathers?
Not sure. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Councillor Stathers, please.
Councillor Everson. I wasn't going to ask any questions today, but I'm really impressed with the news that you brought to us today about the investment in Goole in particular, and also in the business centres such as Beverly. Is it still going? Yes. My question, you won't be surprised, relates to our smaller market towns, such as Market Wheaton in my ward, and Pocklington and Driffield. And what are we doing to help those towns attract new investment? Obviously on a smaller scale, but we're putting more houses, more people in those smaller market towns. So we need to be encouraging perhaps small to medium-sized companies to expand. What are we doing on that front, please?
Yeah, our business support team are always extremely busy offering advice and support to precisely those sort of businesses. We do have business centres, as you know, at Market Wheaton anyway, where businesses operate from. There's always somebody there from the business support team on hand to offer advice. But the general sort of networking, the contact that our business support team have with all businesses in the area, and offer advice, networking, information about all companies that are moving into the area, also giving them advice and support, because as you well know, to get actually on the books of these larger companies, you have to have a number of different sorts of accreditation and sort of certificates that are necessary. So our business support team work very hard to make sure that all our small companies have that information, have those accreditations to allow them to take advantage of the opportunities. And I am extremely encouraged by the number of businesses that are moving in, and also I think since people have realised that they can work more easily from home now and don't need to be in large businesses, so it's making that side of employment even more attractive as well. So it's not just about big business, it's about people recognising they can work more readily from home and start businesses. So the opportunities are really very good, but we as an authority are very good also at giving that support and getting that information out to people about what the opportunities are.
Thank you. Councillor Coultish, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As is tradition, when Gould's mentioned not once today but twice, I'm going to have to ask a question. Would Councillor Everson, and speaking on behalf of the leadership as well, agree that the business we've seen come to Gould and the investment Gould has received thus far is just the beginning for Gould, and much more is to come, and residents in Gould can be excited about its future?
Councillor Everson.
It's a lovely question. It's absolutely so exciting. The way business is growing in the area is amazing, and I think it's just so many brilliant opportunities for Gould itself. And what we must ensure, and what we will be working hard to do, is make sure that the residents, the people who live in Gould, are able to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, and we're working very hard on that. And of course there's the Gould Town deal with the £25 million investment there. So yeah, work ongoing, but really exciting times for Gould, and it's a pleasure to be part of it.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say I welcome the report from Councillor Everson, and thank you very much. I think she's answered some very specific questions to the best of her ability, and I commend her for it. I think I'll just ask her, would it really help her in future if the Conservative members put those specific questions to her in advance, as indeed other items that are on the order paper, rather than springing them on her in this meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Jeffries, please.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome Councillor Everson's report again about Gould, and as Councillor Coultish has said, obviously it's very welcome to Gould. Just one point. It's just mainly about the free ports. Have you got any update regarding what's happening there, you know, with the government funding towards the free ports at all for us, please? Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries, well, our business submission goes in at the end of this month. So once that goes in, then we go into the next part of the process, if you like. So we're not in the first tranche, as you know, but hopefully we'll sort of be in the second group of Freeport businesses. And then, as I said earlier, then the benefits for business with rate reliefs, etc. I think Junction 36 and that area around there, I think is it's just going to attract so much business and so much variety as well, as I said to Councillor Coultish, a very exciting time.
Thank you very much indeed. I know Councillor L. Beerham is wanting a question, but unfortunately we've now run out of time. We're only allocated 10 minutes for questions and we'll pass that now. So I do apologise for yet another problem with Councillor Beerham's. We move on to the next, which is Councillor Tucker, the portfolio holder for Planning, Infrastructure and Housing, who will make an oral report. Councillor Tucker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I'll start by saying I'm absolutely delighted to be giving you this presentation and update on my portfolio. This is my first update that I've given this council, so bear with me. Chairman, I will be asking, my timing isn't as good as Councillor Everson's, so I'll probably ask him for a minute's extension if that is possible, just to complete my presentation.
Do you have 8 members who could...
Have I got 8 people supporting me?
I think
yes, I have, Chairman.
Plenty, thank you. So we'll allow you another
Would you mind, Chairman, if I stand here, because I don't like having me back to all the members, so I'm just going to wander around here. And we're not quite ready yet. Members, I've got a very large portfolio. I have infrastructure, planning and housing in my portfolio. In 5 minutes, it would be impossible to give you a meaningful update on all those areas. So what I'm going to focus on today is just infrastructure and share with you what I think are some exciting new developments. So on that, we're going to do the Chris Whitty thing, aren't we? So Sarah, first slide, please. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is Fertile Bridge, and I will go into these projects and share with you where they are with pictures. This is a £260,000 development. And then going to go across to Hessel Foreshore, where we're going to look at the new scheme down at Hessel. And then from there, we're going to stay in Hessel. We're going to look at the new St Anne's School and the extra care living. And then I'm going to go down to Jock Lodge and then finish off at Willoughby Roundabout. So, next slide, please, Sarah. So, Fertile Bridge. As we all know, members, the East Coast is ravaged by high tides. But the biggest threat we have on the East Coast is tidal surges. And as you can see from the top picture, Councillor Healing is stood on the land, and that is all that's left of that cliff. So we delivered a project to protect large parts of Mid-Holderness, and it was developed, it was worked in partnership with the IDB because we needed their rights of access to enter that land. So what we've done, we've put a new penstock valve, which you can see in the bottom picture, and beyond that you can see like a ditch. So when there's no sea, if we get a tidal surge and that bank goes, the sea will rush in, but it'll get stopped at that penstock valve there, and that will stop large parts of Holderness getting flooded. So it's actually quite a low-cost development, which will have massive benefits to people in the area. Next slide, please. So staying on that theme, we're now going to go down to Hessel Foreshore, and we've got a scheme down there that's cost £11 million. It's 100% government grant funded. Phase 1 was a sluice structure down at Ferry Road, and that again is just another penstock valve. And you can't really see it, you have to look in the ditch to see it, but should there be a tidal surge or any high tides, that will stop the water flooding parts of Hessel. There's also Phase 2. Phase 2 is actually quite a boring project, really. If you drive down the A63 and you look at the side of the road as you're going west, there's some like big blocks before you get to Summer Bridge. That is Phase 2 of the project. Can you hear me? My first presentation. Councillor Nolan, can you hear me now? Where did I get to? Shall I start at Hessel again? Sorry? Phase 2. Right, so phase 2 is a very simple design. If you're heading out of Hull, before you get to the Humber Bridge, if you look on the side of the A63, you'll see a series of blocks, and those blocks are designed, should there be high water or tidal surges or anything, it will stop the water entering onto the A63. When we had a tidal surge on the A63 last time, the whole carriageway flooded. Hopefully that will stop that. What I am really delighted about to say is the installation of the flooding by the Hessel foreshore is actually complete now, apart from a bit of tightening up. And it was used in anger for the very first time on Bank Holiday Monday. The doors were closed, no flooding occurred, there was a high tide, there was a tidal surge predicted, and everybody stayed dry. So a great project. Next slide, please, Sarah. I'm going to stay in Hessel now, and I'm going to start talking about the combined St Anne's School and the Extra Care Living Scheme. This is a £21 million development, and it's a combined, what you've got on the same site, you've got Extra Care Living and you've got this new school. The school facilities are world-class, absolutely world-class. I mean, as most of you know, I come from a health background, and I'm excited to see some of this. You've got hydrotherapy pools, you've got a rebound room, you've got sensory rooms. All these are amazing. And there's 22 bedrooms for staff and pupil, for any pupils that need to stay over. On the back of the site, which you'll see in Ass's impression, there are 44 extra care assisted living accommodation. And these are apartments which are cat-free and they're wheelchair-friendly. They've got adaptations in the kitchens. It'll be lifeline-friendly, and it will support people to stay at home who normally wouldn't be able to. Next slide, please, Sarah. So St Anne's continued. There'll be 140 students on the school roll, and I'm sure Councillor Aiken will be very pleased about that, with severe complex learning needs. There'll be 22 school bedrooms, I said earlier, 14 to 17 students will be staying over, and there'll be provision for 4 rooms for long-term stays. And this project was funded from the Housing Revenue Account, Education Capital Account, and a dedicated capital account. So really, really pleased about that one. Next slide, please, Sarah. And this is what it looks like. So in the front of the drawing is a school. And can you see at the back, there's like a high building that's set on 3 floors, and that's where the extra care living will be. Now we're going to move on, Sarah. So we're now coming to an update for you on Jock's Lodge. Jock's Lodge is the largest single capital development scheme this authority has ever undertaken. It's a huge project. It's £62 million. £40 million of this money has been given or pledged or granted by the DFT. That road from Beverly down to Castle Hill and then onto the Humber Bridge is the most congested road in the whole of East Riding. 30,000 vehicles a day use that road. Interestingly, the surveys they've done pre-COVID and during COVID, and not post-COVID, not COVID now, the vehicle numbers have actually remained quite static, which was quite a shock, really. It'll go from Morrison's at Castle Hill, from Morrison's in Beverly down to Castle Hill roundabout, where it'll join the new or the existing dual carriageway down to the Humber Bridge. It will be future-proofing any future residential and commercial activities that will happen south of Beverly, so it will future-proof that area. We'll have that infrastructure in place. We're actually having to order a specialist gas pipe. This pipe's coming all the way from Italy to go underneath the road. And the groundworks are due to start later on in this autumn. So it's, the project is getting there. It's been a long time coming. It's an exciting development for the area, and it will future-proof. Next slide, please. Okay, to finish my presentations, I'm actually going to finish just down the road from Jock's Lodge at Willoughby's roundabout. It's a £1.2 million project. It's 100% funded by Section 106 contributions. It's designed to increase traffic capacity by 30%. And this will be achieved by the road widening. So the road's going to be widened, and there's going to be traffic lights. And you can just about see on the drawings the straight lines before it gets roundabout. And that will be looking at the flow of traffic, to keep that flow of traffic going. And I'm sure some of the members from Willoughby will be not happy, but they'll be encouraged by this, because where that bottleneck is from Willoughby roundabout to Willoughby Square now, hopefully that traffic will be flow a lot better, because rather than have to wait for traffic coming from the right, there'll be some traffic light system there. And that work is due to start any time now, and it will take around 3 months. So that's my first update to you. I thought it'd be useful to show you some pictures. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I will say now, if I don't know the answer to any of your questions, because bearing in mind I've been in post 8 weeks, 9 weeks now, I will go away and I will find you the answer and I'll bring it back to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Aitken, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tucker. Great update. I really appreciate all that very positive information. One quick question, and I don't think you'll be surprised by this question, is when can I come and have a look? Because I've been pressing that button for a while. I'm desperate to come and have a look. The project at St Anne's at Hessel is going to be create a massive impact for our children and young people with special needs. And I'm really, really excited about it. I really look forward to the time when it actually passes from your portfolio across to mine. So I'm looking forward to having that visit. I hope that'll be possible.
Councillor Aitken, I would welcome the opportunity to take you around there. I would also welcome the opportunity if the local ward member wants to come along as well, because it was in their patch, because I think it's such an exciting project, and it's such a great project that's been developed by this authority. So yes, I will come back to you, and my promise is if a local ward member from Hessel wants to come along, please feel to get in touch and we'll sort something out. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Harold, please.
Thank you, Councillor Tucker, and you aced that, so well done. I would like to take you back to Jock's Lodge, if I may. And, I can take my mask off, can't I? And to the gas pipe work that you alluded to, and I noticed a price tag there of 500,000, so I just wondered if you could elaborate on this wonderful pipe that we have there.
Harold, yeah, I never thought I'd get excited about a piece of pipe, but I have actually. This pipe is a designer pipe, if you may. It's coming all the way from Italy, and it's pivotal to the success of this project, because the main pipeline from probably where I live at Easington all the way to north of England goes underneath that road. And given the traffic that's going to be crossing it, it's an at-risk point, if you like. So this special double-line, double-skinned designer from Italy piping is made and shipped across in good time, because, Councillor Harold, we need it on site before the work starts, really, because it's going to take about 6 months to be made and get here. Every month that we delay that project once it starts will cost this authority money. So that's why the pipe needs to be here, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but it's pivotal to and without it, we can't proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes, please.
Councillor Tucker, can I congratulate you on the delivery of your first portfolio holder report? Very difficult to deal with so much information so quickly, but you did so very comprehensively. In your report, you referred to a lot of flood defence work that's been done, and I know our residents will be very relieved to hear about all that's been done to keep them dry and safe. But you also referred a number of times to tidal surges. Just for any residents or members who are not familiar with that term, can you help us with what a tidal surge is, please?
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Yes, I can. I'm sure Councillor Jefferson and Councillor Whittle and myself, we all know about tidal surges. We live with tidal surges. That's why in Hornsey they have the flood barriers and the gates are closed. Wivensey, we have them. We've just seen all the capital development this authority is putting in to keep people in Hessel dry, my patch dry. A tidal surge, Councillor Holmes, is this. It's the perfect storm, right? We had one predicted on Bank Holiday Monday. The last major one was in 2013. There will be another. For a tidal surge to occur, Chairman, you need 3 factors. Off Scotland, in the North Sea, you need a low pressure. And for every millibar the pressure drops, the sea level climbs by 1 centimetre. Okay, so low pressure, that's the first thing you need. Then you need northerly winds that pushes this high water down, and on top of that you need a high tide. So if you get northerly winds, low pressure off the top of Scotland, and the high tides, we've got a problem. And that's when, as the councillors from Hornsey will know, we move from flood alert to flood warning. And that's what we had on Bank Holiday Monday. We had a flood warning, we had a prediction of a 1 metre tidal surge, which would have, thank goodness for our new work we put in place for these new flood barriers, it keeps everybody dry. And that's what a tidal surge is. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Weeks, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the report, and also thank you for mentioning Willoughby. I think that the roundabout that you can see up there is a great example of how infrastructure is being improved because of the damage of excessive development. So will you join me, and do you agree with me that this is an example of best practice that can be applied across the board to other housing development areas where we are seeing excessive development, and that infrastructure can be improved using Section 106 funding directly paid for by developers?
Is this working? Oh, it is now again. Yes, thank you, Councillor Weeks. I mean, in planning, we look at case by case and judge each case and each plan application on its merits. You're quite right, and I totally agree with you. This is a wonderful opportunity that was being grasped here by where we've used Section 106 money that will make a large difference to local residents. Yes, I would like to see more of this in the future, but as I say, you've got to look at every application on its own merits, because what we know on this road is we have 30,000 vehicle movements a day. And what we don't want to do is spend £62 million up the road and then bottleneck it here. So this became an imperative that we had to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I commend Councillor Tucker? I mean, I think he's been in portfolio holder for about a month, and yet all these, is it more than a month? And yet all these marvellous schemes are coming forward. Can I just ask him, slightly flippantly, what else he's got planned for the next month? But no, seriously though, my point is the Willoughby roundabout and the A164. 20-odd years ago, when we talked about the A164, everybody said it needed a proper dual carriageway and a decent roundabout. And it's sad in a way that it's taken so many years to carry out this piecemeal work with all the frustration for the residents in those areas. And what the lesson is that when there's a major capital project, I'm not having to go at the council, I'm not having to go at anybody else, but the lesson to draw is future-proof it so that you don't end up having to spend a lot of time and more cost to overcome the problems that you have when you don't build what's needed in the first place.
I think it's working now. Thank you, Councillor Nolan, for your question. Yeah, we do. I spoke earlier when I responded to Councillor Gateshill about his question about rail, and I've talked about the Transport for the North Board. Transport for North doesn't just look at rail, it looks at highways, it looks at cycle routes, it looks at the whole coverage. And one of the things that I think we need to predict, because trends are changing, is we need to look, when we do it once. And I think that's the key, and if the information's there that we, in this case, 30,000 vehicles a day, clearly there's a need, we need to accommodate that. And one of my concerns is now we're taking this to Transport for the North Board in Manchester, is the road from Beverly to York. It's a single track linking road in most places. So yes, Councillor, I actually agree with you on this. We need to do it, and we do it once. And when we get new planned applications, we need to make sure that it's right and fit for purpose at the time. Thank you, Councillor Nolan.
Thank you. Councillor Jefferson, please.
I would also like to offer my congratulations to Councillor Tucker. Knew he was a decent fellow when he came on the council. However, you mentioned, and I know now it should be questions about what you've spoken about. However, today you very stupidly mentioned Hornsey to both my fellow colleague and myself about, obviously, tides. We've always got the water coming in at Hornsey. It happens frequently. However, what you didn't mention was that we are so pleased that we've actually got an A road into Hornsey now. It's only taken about 50 years, but it is there. I would love you to start on a footpath between Hornsey and Seaton, which is almost 3 miles, and it means the children do not get a free pass to go to school. They have to walk on a footpath. And what it is, it's a trod. So sometime when you're coming round our way, could you just come and check this footpath, and you do that trod with both Councillor Whittle and myself, because you can get things done, and I've got full confidence in you.
Do you know, it was going so well, wasn't it? It was going so well. One lesson I'll take from today is, don't mention Hornsey. Councillor Jefferson, I would love to come and have a cup of tea with you. And I can't make promises I can't keep. But what I will do, Councillor Jefferson, I will listen to your concerns and Councillor Whittle's concerns. I will look at that, and then obviously I will feed that upwards and onwards. I've got to hold my hand on my heart. I can't picture the roads you're on about, because there are an awful lot of roads. But I will, Councillor Jefferson, put the kettle on. I'm coming. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. We'll now move on to notices of motions. First, Councillor Davison, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to read out the motion just in case the people watching haven't got. It starts off by saying that riding of your farming area in the UK, that due to a shortage of processing workers and incinerated in the East Riding, that Brexit has caused.
Councillor Davis, I'm afraid you seem to be going in and out. Can we exchange that microphone, please?
We won't get too close. I'll try this one. Okay, I'll continue. That Brexit has caused a severe shortage of processing workers, as 60% were EU nationals and many have returned to their homeland. So, this council resolves to 1. Support big farmers in the East Riding by urgently writing to the DEFRA Minister and Prime Minister expressing our serious concerns about the future of this industry and demanding urgent action to prevent the destruction of this industry, which is so important to our rural community. And secondly, instructs the Cabinet to see what actions it can take to support our farmers, for example, by using leaflets and social media to encourage processing workers to apply to work here. So what do you think entitles me to talk about pigs, being an urban councillor? I do have farming in my blood. Not pig's hearts, which is the recent addition, but anyway, there you go. But I do have farming, and it was when I was a child, I did help my grandfather drive a pig down North Frodingham Main Street in order for it to be killed by the butcher at the end of the main street. Before Christmas, I was watching Look North and saw the distress and passion of 2 lady pig farmers from the Driffield area who were struggling to cope with the growing backlog in the pig processing chain. They couldn't get their pigs from the farm to the factory because of the shortage of butchers, slaughtermen, and in the factories. This meant either keeping them alive longer than normal with additional costs, or culling, i.e. slaughtering, on the farm to incineration. They lost 1,000 pigs at that time before Christmas. Clearly not good options, and clearly causing distress and severe disruption to the years of investment into that industry which they were passionate about. As stated in the preamble, this industry is important to the rural economy of East Riding. Pig farmers campaigned to get some reaction from government, A government responsible for allowing many migrant workers to return home. 60% of the workforce were from the EU. The Brexit policy, it cannot be denied, affected this industry. Reactions from government, well, the current Prime Minister said, well, they've got to die sometime. I think that was his very callous, derisory reaction, a callous reaction to the impact this has on the industry. And Minister George Eustace played down the ongoing cull of pigs, describing it as a relatively small number. At that time, it was at least 30,000 pigs being culled in the UK. The pig industry would have to get in the queue behind the demand for poultry workers so that there can be turkeys at Christmas, but not pigs in blankets. However, the chair of the Parliamentary Committee for Food and Rural Affairs, a Conservative Member of Parliament, commented emphatically, to his credit, the industry is slowly being destroyed. There needs to be urgent and meaningful action. Other reaction from local rural MPs, I've heard nothing. The National Pig Association is being fobbed off with delays in meeting with Home Office regarding immigration arrangements. What is needed is the government to actually acknowledge there is a problem and needs to act. How could it act? Well, perhaps a temporary restriction on imported pork, a longer guaranteed period of work for those migrant workers it should encourage to return, and an investment in homegrown training and recruitment within the processing chain. Action now. The word perfect storm has been used once or twice today, but this is a perfect storm for the pig sector. Delays in getting their pigs to factories, the increased cost of feed for those pigs that are not going, and the drop in pig prices. They need help. And so I ask you to support the amendment. The Liberal Democrats will support the amendment which has been laid down, which just fails to mention Brexit, but is demanding the same reaction from the government. So I would ask you to support the amendment from Councillors Holtby and Dewhurst. I look forward to Councillor Dewhurst's contribution, who's a bit of an expert in the field. He's driven more pigs than I have, perhaps. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll have pleasure in seconding this, and I'll just briefly speak to second it. Now, Councillor Davison talked about his concern about the plight of pig farming and about his history of walking a pig to market in North Frodingham, I think he said. He raised this matter with our group because of his concerns and persuaded us to put this motion down, which we are delighted to support. There is clearly, the pig farming issue is part of a wider problem that's facing agriculture. The sort of Brexit promises to farmers have not materialised, and it looks as if the farmers are going to get a poor deal, having exchanged the EU subsidies they used to get for what looks far less than what they were getting. And there's also a concern which Phil touched on about the substandard food coming from the other side of the world, because one of the things we want to do was to keep our food standards up, and our farmers are under threat of being undermined. We are dealing here with pig farming because it's such an important industry to our area, and I think it says the largest pig farming area in the UK is East Riding of Yorkshire, the sort of pig capital of the UK, very important to us. One of the things that we thought was also important was, as well as writing to the government, was also to see what we can do in terms of, as a council, and it says instruct the Cabinet to see what actions it can take. Now that's probably limited, we have to be realistic, but nevertheless this is the issue about agricultural processing workers is not just specific to our area. I know Lincolnshire's got problems, and it means that we will be competing with other areas. So whatever the East Riding can do to help our farmers in the East Riding has got to be important for us to try and do that. So let's try and work to support our farmers. As Phil says, we're happy to accept the amendment. We note that the word Brexit has been replaced by external factors, and it could have just said Brexit and other external factors, but let's not argue about Brexit. It's going to happen, and it's happening, and we can't pretend it's not a factor. But let's, in the interests of agreeing on something that's very important to our farmers, agree with the amendment as there. I like the addition of the amendment where it talks about calling on the government to launch an inquiry into the pig sector supply chain. I think that's a positive addition to the motion we put down. So, yes, we will accept the amendment as it is and incorporate that as the substantive motion, assuming that's Councillor Holtby and Councillor Dewhurst are happy with that. And so let's agree that we will try to do our best for our pig farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. As been discussed, an amendment has been submitted by Councillor Holtby. So, Councillor Holtby.
Thank you very much. I hope that works. Chair, pig farmers in Hessel and Beverly will join their more rural counterparts in thinking the Liberal Democrats must have had a road to Damascus moment over the Christmas break. It's only a few weeks since we were in this building discussing a motion that essentially tried to get us to blame farmers for polluting the seas off our coast. So it's very encouraging to read the motion brought before us today, and there's little to disagree with it in the wording. However, as has been mentioned, there are just two alterations to the motion which we would like to bring forward. The first amendment is in the third note. I believe it's too simplistic to blame Brexit for the shortage of processed workers alone. The pandemic has also encouraged those people who do such a vital job in processing the animals to return to their country of origin and not return to the UK until they see that the pandemic is in retreat. Wider problems have contributed to this problem, and the amendment to include external factors is more comprehensive than the original wording. The second amendment is on the first resolution, and this is because I think we need to go further and call on the government to look into the whole pig supply chain, which is not working correctly. Farmers have been unable to move pigs off farm at the right time, so those pigs stay on eating and soon become overweight and outside the contract specification. The processor then slashes the price he pays for the overweight pig, thus causing the farmer to lose a lot of money very quickly. If the pigs are still not moved, then the absolutely unacceptable situation arises where pigs have to be killed on farm and then sent away for rendering at huge cost to the producer and a waste as they're not allowed to go into the food chain. Chair, the pig industry is a vital part of the East Riding economy, providing many jobs and producing excellent quality meat for consumers. The pig sector has never been subsidised in the way arable farming has, and has always been an economically efficient part of agriculture. A lot of this comes down to our choices about whether we value our food being produced on our shores and not imported after being produced at a standard that would not be acceptable here. This is an opportunity to let government know that we want our pig farmers to be backed up and supported through this crisis. The government needs to get a grip on this before it's too late and good businesses go to the wall. We must do everything we can to protect this industry, and I want to thank Councillor Davison for bringing this motion to Council. But I do wish to make those two amendments as outlined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dewhurst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, thank you to Councillor Davison for accepting our amendment on this motion. I'll speak briefly. I think a lot of the ground has already been covered, but perhaps I can add a little bit of extra detail to some of the things that have been said already. Back in October, after some considerable pressure, the government did introduce measures in an attempt to help the pig sector. That was 800 temporary visas for butchers, private storage aid, and an incentive payment for processors to slaughter more pigs. Unfortunately, for a number of reasons that are complex and not worth going into today, those measures have not worked. The butchers are arriving slowly, but the other measures have not been taken up by the processors as intended, and that intention was to help the farmers. So we were left at the end of the year with a backlog of around 150,000 pigs on farms across the UK. Over the Christmas period and New Year, that number has doubled. I spoke to one farmer in the area just this week. He has 11,000 pigs on his farm that should have gone to market. That is 11,000 pigs he has to feed every day, find space for, and hope that next week they will go to market. The processor he supplies this week will take 50% of the contracted number off his farm. So that number will rise again next week from 11,000 to 12,000, and if this continues, there is no end in sight, which is why some farmers have reached that limit. There is no more space, welfare becomes compromised, and they have to make the heartbreaking decision to destroy a perfectly healthy animal. This is against a backdrop of a market where they are losing £25 per pig due to the input costs at the moment. So it's not sustainable. The industry is in very, very, very serious situation. Around 10% of those producers have already gone out of the industry in the last year. So this is why we're called for an inquiry, because this supply chain is clearly broken. There are only 4 major processors nationally in the pork sector. They wield enormous power over farmers. Farmers, when they're negotiating table, do not have a chance. To give you some recent examples, we've heard about the pigs being sat on farms getting heavier. So when the processor does ring up and says, I'll take a load off you, they take them at a reduced price because they're out of spec. The reason why they're out of spec is because the processor didn't take them the week before. And then they'll ring up and say, good news, we're going to open up the plant on Saturday and do an extra kill, and we'll take a few hundred off you. But they'll take them off you at half price. The farmer does not have any comeback on that. They're desperate, they have to get rid of the pigs, and so they'll take any price they can get for them. As I say, it isn't sustainable. So really, we need an inquiry, we need the government to look into this, as they did with the dairy supply chain, who have struggled for many years, and that has now been addressed. Because the balance of power is now out of shift. It is the processors who've ended up in this crisis, the processors who are reliant on the foreign labour we've discussed. If you look at our local farmers, 95% plus of people who work on our local farms will come from nearby towns and villages. And it's the farmers that are bearing the brunt of this problem. So I'm delighted that the motion has been supported as amended, and I hope every councillor today can support that motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't see any hands up, so we will go to Councillor Davison to close the debate, please.
Yes, I knew he knew more about pigs than I did. No, just simply to thank the comments and encourage you all to support the amendment to my motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I will now take the vote on the amendment first. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. So it now becomes the substantive motion, and we go through the process again. So all those in favour? Thank you. Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is therefore carried. The next motion to move is Councillor Padden, please.
Thank you, Chair. We all got one of these the other week, so I'm going to read from that. It says here, the Humberside Police and Crime Commission 21-25 plan stated that our area, covers 1,250 square miles in all money That's 956 square metres. It also states there's over 932,000 people live here. We have over 30,000 businesses, over 230 towns and parish councils, at the largest ports complex in the country, now becoming a main industry cluster, alongside 4 unitary councils. Impressive, is it not? And I thank the Portfolio Councillor Evesham for bringing up this in her speech, because we in this chamber must feel pride in ourselves that we are the members elected to oversee all of this. Contrasting this, what is the state of affairs is one of our supporting infrastructures. And at this moment, the heart of all this is taxis. Speaking with our licensing authority prior to the Christmas holidays, currently we have 96 licensed Hackney carriage taxis. Definition between a private hire and Hackney makes a difference. The Hackney carriages is the one we're talking about. And of those 96, there are only 16 wheelchair access taxis. Is that good enough for this area? Our expansion we talked about, our growth. What we're trying to achieve. Really, do we believe everything serious and good will come from such low stats? New businesses and expanding ones from outside need taxis. Why? Because they're the knowledge of our infrastructure, so to speak. Our licensed officers have said it's not a quick fix. We're seeing new applications, but it's becoming a slow progress. Does need some major constructive work to bolster this once a professional business comes along. So the startup costs are not helping at all. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I've heard stories of taxis now don't work after 8 o'clock at night. Oh, it's not sociable. 125,000 square miles. To be frank, Chairman, I don't think this is very clever. We are also a big holiday visitor area, so that we have a lot of people coming into this area. The first thing they want to do is dump the car, jump in a taxi and go and get a few drinks. Well, that's not going to help, is it? We're faltering. Don't know why we're faltering, but we are faltering. I'm led to believe that we haven't done much taxi courses in the last 12, 18 months, but I think that's to be understood because of the close contact with COVID. So I'm going to move on because I don't think there's any more reason to go on. So what should we do to get this back on the road? What we need to do is we need to get together and form a committee, or the scrutiny committee, to go through the reasons why. I've had loads of information coming in from people who have been in the trade, who are in the trade, saying this, that and the other. One of the biggest time factors, they say, is the application comes in, it's a long time before they see anything or hear anything, and then they run down the costings. What's not helping us now at the moment in the costing aspect is that second-hand cars seems to be outstripping the new ones. So, to be very honest with you, I would just like to put this motion down, come back to you and discuss it with it, and I believe there's Councillor Harold has put an amendment in, which I rather like, and I'm quite happy to go down that road as well. So I'll just hand over now. Next, please.
Thank you very much. Councillor Heslop Mullins, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second this motion. I did some inquiries about taxi firm availability when I was looking at the problems of ladies walking home at night through dark parks, as in Queen's Park in Bridlington, and what facilities were available to them. I think it's important that we look at encouraging more taxi drivers, because there are lots of places that are unlit and dark, and we need to make sure that as many people as possible are able to get home in safety. Part of my inquiries, I talked to a firm of taxis in my town, and I was contacted by the owner of the firm, who is actually the owner of the largest taxi firm in the East Riding, and he's come up with some points about why we're losing people. He thinks, and I'm going to go through all of them, but I'm not going to be taking a long time over it. He believes that we do need to have a DBS for all of them. He believes we need a medical. But he points out that currently, medicals for taxi drivers have to be taken at their own doctors, which can lead to long delays. Whereas if you're a lorry driver and you need a medical, you can go to any doctor. And he suggests that opening it up to that would allow more people to get seen quicker and get that through. You have to pass a test. The test is 20 questions on policy. Any driver can drive, but to pass this test, you've got to go through an approved provider. So they have a monopoly. And a fail generates for them more revenue with no choice for the candidate opting for a different provider. Sorry, that's a driver assessment. The question, the knowledge test, is 20 questions. If you fail, instead of being guided by the licensing authority on the policy, you simply fail and have to wait a further 4 weeks before you can take that test again. Whereas if you're working in the building trade and you're taking the CSCS test, the examiner will guide you through the policy so that you knows that you understand it before you take the test. His fourth item that he mentions is the cost of vehicles and putting them on the road. I must say that I'm really pleased to see that he acknowledges that officers are working with him on this and looking at what can be done to be able to get better second-hand cars on the road. Although, of course, he's now complaining that second-hand cars are going up in value, so that negates some of the work he's after. The majority of drivers are in the 50 to 60 range, and unlike us in this chamber, don't have young taxi drivers working with us. But he's trying to encourage young taxi drivers to come into this industry. And I would move that we do need, and I think the amendments are great, that we do need to encourage more of them. He does mention, though, that getting people to work at night, especially at weekends, can be difficult, and draws my attention to a recent incident in Bridlington, which ended up with the car and himself being damaged. And perhaps we should also be asking the officers to look at encouraging the police to be available at night so that they can help maintain a better standard of conduct by the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As mentioned, an amendment has been submitted by Councillor Harold. Councillor Harold, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Padden, for bringing this motion to us. If I may, I'll just read out the amendment, if that's okay, because that allows anybody who hasn't got sight of the papers to understand what it is we're trying to achieve in bringing on this amendment. So I wish to move the following amendment to motion B, submitted by Councillor Padden. This council notes the difficulties being experienced in finding taxi and private hire vehicles due to a shortage of drivers as a result of many factors, one being the ongoing pandemic. The council resolves to, in line with its commitment to ensuring the safety of all East Riding residents at all times, recognise the importance of the continued promotion of the taxi and private hire industry as a whole. And then point 2 is request the relevant committee continues to monitor and improve the measures taken by the council and other partner organisations to support and help this much needed service within the East Riding. And all the points that have been raised already can't be challenged. You've been really proactive in seeking the views of people who are in the industry now. I have a background in my previous life. I owned a private hire company. I was a private hire operator for many happy years. And if you ever think working with 25 gentlemen and ladies over a certain age is any easy feat, it absolutely isn't. But what I would like to try and do is a little bit of myth busting, because we say taxis, and what we actually mean, there are two definitions. So it's hackney carriage and private hire. So your hackney carriage, you're hailing them down. They're in the square, they're parked up, and you're hailing them down. Your private hire is when you ring up and you book through an operator. And so the majority of these are self-employed, and what they do is they run in through that office. They run in and pay a running-in fee to the private hire operator. So you've got two differences there, but they all do the same job. They're all there. Some operators run a 24-hour service, 7 days a week. So they're there to pick up our most vulnerable. Many of those also fulfill school contracts. So they are taking our most vulnerable at many times. So whether that be a young lady, and I take Councillor Heslop-Mullins' point about it being a young lady walking across the park, but I'm just as concerned, Councillor Heslop-Mullins and Chairman, with the young gentleman walking across the park who might have had a couple too many, and I want to see him getting home as well, because as well as it's been somebody's daughter, it's somebody's son. So if I can just say that due to the pandemic, I think businesses has been affected, so that has had that natural knock-on effect with the private hire and the taxi industry. And what happened is furlough came and it went. When you're self-employed, there are certain criteria that you needed to fulfill to even get any kind of help and aid. And I happen to know that many taxi drivers, private hire drivers, were not successful in getting that much, as much as you would have expected. Certainly not an 80% furlough. So we have those things. So what's happened, I can tell you a couple of taxi drivers, private hire operators, drivers that I know. One's gone to be a caretaker. The other one is actually trained. He went to one of the colleges locally and he's trained as a plasterer. So what they've done during this time of uncertainty, they've gone off and they've upskilled. But you're absolutely right. The age demographic is an issue. So if I can just say that speaking with officers, once I saw Councillor Padden's motion, I thought, well, let's have a look and find out whether what I know is resonating with what Councillor Padden's saying. And actually, the council hasn't received any complaints about the lack of taxis, although we may know that when we're out and about, and if you stood in Beverly or you stood in Goole, it's quite difficult to get a taxi at certain hours of the day, but for the majority of the time, a lot of them are parked up. In the East Riding, we've seen no real change following Brexit, so that wasn't an issue. But the greatest factor has been the pandemic. Pubs and bars report the volumes of customers are as significantly lower. So again, there's that knock-on effect, and that's where that came from. Specialist services such as airport runs, they haven't been happening because none of us have been going on honours holidays. So once again, that's another factor. The main costs that I'm aware of are, as well as the vehicle, purchasing the vehicle, it's your insurance. The insurance for a private hire or a hackney carriage driver is colossal. You know how your insurance on your own vehicle has increased. Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Nolan. You may never do that ever again. But thank you. I do my best.
Well, before we do that, we'll need 8 people to...
So, Councillor Nolan, you might have to bring some friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what was I talking about? Sorry, I've lost me. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's the insurance. And then again, so if I can go back to our licence fees, £56. So I think when we're looking at that, it's not our internal costs that are the killers, it's those external costs that these drivers are facing. So again, officers told me about their knowledge, almost like exit interviews, so they know where the destination data on where some of the ex-drivers have gone. And, you know, many of them have taken the opportunity to retire, and many have gone on in a positive way. You're absolutely right about the demographic, and that's acknowledged. If I can give you, so I'm talking about hackney carriage and private hire now. So in March 2020, we had 252 across our authority. January last year, that had gone to 221. Now looking at that, we have another additional 17 pending. So we aren't that far away from where we were originally. But what have we done as a local authority? We have kept our fees low for the last 10 years. You talk about the training. What's happening now is the team are now looking at not using the external providers anymore, but bringing that in-house. So that point is being addressed and will be addressed. We reduced some funded fees where were then applicable during lockdown, so those that weren't working, that weren't able to, but don't forget they still had to pay their car insurance as a private hire vehicle. That doesn't stop. So whilst we've reduced those fees, the insurance companies haven't done that. We've also promoted safe use of its taxis through our Taxi Safe campaigns. That continues. My view is that this isn't a scrutiny function. This sits with the licensing committee. They know the taxi and private hire industry inside out. They are best placed to know what is best to support, promote this sector, because this is a vital service. When I ran the taxi firm, it was an amazing time. You get to speak to people. Some people you're the only person to speak to all day. So once again, I'm really happy if you are able to support the amendment, because all we've tried to do is have a more holistic view of what's happening across the East Riding and how we can better improve that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harold. Councillor Elvidge, if you can add anything.
Thank you, Chairman, for the challenge. It's very difficult to be the one that follows Councillor Harold and add anything, apart from keeping it short, which is something I don't think Councillor Harold will ever do, apart from her height, which isn't meant to be offensive or heightist. I would urge everyone to support this amendment. We all can see how well researched it's been, how factual it is, and how it holistically covers the whole of the East Riding. It's not parochial anywhere. So all I can say is please support the amendment. It's good, it's proper, and it's factual.
Thank you very much. Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for bringing this motion. Yeah, I will certainly be supporting this, but I'm delighted that the second paragraph calls for it to be referred to the appropriate committee, because it's clear that we have work to do on this in the East Riding, because when you look at the historic, I agree that it hasn't changed much since Brexit. But the East Riding has a really small number of taxis. It doesn't matter whether you look at it per square mile, per resident, per town. The accessibility by disabled people is poor, and our ratings nationally in this are not good. So we have a need to review this. I'm delighted it's come to council. It does directly affect not just the disabled, but it's a current topic with Humberside Police's Violence Against Women and Girls project. It is mentioned specifically in there, so it's right again that we examine it. But I'm particularly anxious that whoever examines it tries to find an answer as to why in the East Riding we have so few taxis compared with other authorities throughout the nation, and amongst those, the poor percentage of those that are fully available to disabled people. So I think the committee's got some good work to do. I'll certainly be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Copsey, please.
I couldn't help but come in here. I just noticed, Councillor Padden, you mentioned earlier less than 20 wheelchair-adopted Hackney carriages. I would like to just point out at this point now, to the best of my knowledge, every Hackney carriage in the East Riding in Yorkshire has a disabled adapted swivelling seat in the front. Not private hires, but Hackneys. I just wanted to make that point clear to everyone, because everybody's going to go, oh, we haven't got enough disabled cars. That's not actually true. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more questions, so I will therefore move straight on to Councillor Harold, if you wish to answer any of those points. You will finish the debate, yes, but because Councillor Harold has moved an amendment, she's entitled to reply to anything that's been raised.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to support what Councillor Cops has just said is entirely correct, that each vehicle, actually each licensed vehicle in the East Riding has a swivel chair, and that's private hire also, so you are absolutely correct, sir. In the front seat, it's an adapted seat. And also, just to highlight, we spoke about the, I think it's Councillor Walker spoke about the safety element. Well, again, just to highlight the fact that East Riding have paid for the CCTV in all of the vehicles. So again, I think that just reiterates the commitment that this authority has to ensuring not only the safety of our residents, but those that are employed to take them from A to B. But again, I'm really happy that everybody's, again, just to reiterate, it is the licensing committee. For me, this is where licensing sits. This is exactly what they do. They know their industry, and I think they know what is best for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to close the debate now, Councillor Padden?
Thank you, Chair. I will reiterate on Councillor Coatsey about the wheelchair in the front. All the drivers I spoke to, they don't like it. It costs them money to put in. The passengers sitting in the front seat don't like it. So it has been neglected. Even when you speak to them, I don't even think the gentleman that came from Bridlington has mentioned it. And you're right, every car's got one, but nobody likes it because people sit in the front and they're thinking, ooh, this is moving, what's the matter with this? Because there's movement in it and they feel a bit seasick. So thank you for bringing that up, you're quite correct. As far as the limited wheelchair access vehicles are concerned, the Equality Act 2010, section 160-172, says that disabled persons will not pay any more than an able-bodied person for their travel. In a taxi, the meter should not be started until the person has been loaded into the vehicle and the meter is ended before the person is unloaded. This is a controversy amongst a lot of them during BTEC courses where they're talking about it because they reckon it's downtime. So there's controversy around on the disability side of life. Once again, it's not our position to sort it out. So I would like to close the meeting on the amendment by Councillor Harold, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. So I will now take the vote on the amendment first. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is therefore carried and will become the substantive motion. So I will take the substantive motion now. All those in favour? Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much indeed. So the next motion is Councillor Owen, please. Cabinet urgent business decisions.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought I'd take you through each of them individually before we finish this afternoon, but perhaps not, and I'll just move that the report be noted. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holtby, please.
Yeah, I beg to second.
Thank you. Councillor Weeks, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really sorry. I know we've all been here a long time. I just wanted to speak very briefly on this item. As a chair of an Overview and Scrutiny Committee, two of the items on this, in this report relate to items that should have come to my committee under items on the forward plan of key decisions, but because there were urgent items, didn't. And in fact, I was asked to make a decision on two pretty important items, especially the Special Educational Needs and Disability 10-point plan, in a matter of hours, getting an email that was entitled Urgent, Quick Response, make a decision on whether this can go to Cabinet without going to your committee first. Now, I've got no issue with urgent items. Things come up urgently and quickly. But and this isn't a criticism of anybody in particular, but the two items that should have come on the forward plan key decisions to our committee were things that were known about well in advance. In fact, the latter one on the 14th of December, we had a meeting the day before the urgent item came forward. So as a scrutiny chair being asked to make a unilateral decision when really the entire committee should have been involved in making those decisions is a little bit unfair. So this is really just a plea to any officers listening and to the directors who can pass this down to officers to make sure that the proper procedures are followed, make sure that if they have an inkling that this needs to go to Cabinet, that they make sure that they get it in time, so that scrutiny chairs aren't being asked to make decisions unilaterally on urgent items when really it could have been done in a more appropriate way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no further hands. Councillor Owen, would you like to close the debate, please?
I just move the report be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I shall therefore go to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against, please? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That is therefore carried. And that concludes the business of today's meeting. And thank you all very, very much for your attendance, and no doubt we'll see you next time. Thank you.